What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jerrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
How's it going?
And to my left, Zachary Parks.
Yo.
In case you did not know, Team Chat Podcast is a video game podcast where we talk about games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do that by sending us an email at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com, following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and subscribing to our iTunes and YouTube channels. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that as well by going to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show, and in return, we will give you a cool perk like getting the episode early before its General Tuesday release and access to our private Team Chat Podcast Discord server. Boom, all the goodies. Speaking
that was good.
Following up from last week's Patreon spiel, where we talked about a whiteboard. There it is.
Finally.
It's a board that's white.
It is a whiteboard. And it's up there.
Whiteboard.
We have tallies. I mean, audio people, you guys are missing out, but check it out. YouTube.com/teamchatpodcast. Or just do a search. We have now points for Xbox, which sits at a measly 2.
Yeah, well, this
I feel a little
accurate
inaccurate at the time right now.
I don't know what
go
you're
back to
talking
that
about. Yeah, we
episode
do. We
and
have to
listen to
tally
it.
it back up.
Chat
Seriously.
reacts to their own episodes.
And then
That'd be really funny.
PS4 sits with 13 points. Uncharted Hate sits at the current and all-time high of 100%.
It's never been lower than that.
That's from
Mogan
Mogan,
F-bomb
though.
should
You know what?
be
I'm gonna.
zero.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put Jerrett's Uncharted Hate, and it's gonna sit just a little lower. What do I think? My Uncharted.
You haven't played it.
Yes, I have.
Oh,
we
that'd
talked
be a
about
fun-
it.
Wait, did you? We
literally
did?
You guys episode
Baited
about
on
it.
it.
We did.
I know you probably just erased it from your mind because all
I
you
was
said
like,
was,
I gotta
hate it,
block
and
that
I'm
I like
shit.
done.
this rating system.
Yeah, so here we go.
This is how we should rate everything.
It
How much hate
is.
we have for it. And if it's like 2%, that's great.
Yeah,
It's
then
good
that's a
game.
great
I'm
game.
gonna go because I didn't absolutely hate it.
I swear
didn't
to God, if
love
you're
it.
in the 80s, I'm going to punch you in the face.
Oh, so you're gonna really punch me in the face because
God.
I was gonna go.
Like 40.
Look at him with his weird left hand.
You hated it 70?
I'm going 70%.
You hated it? That's a lot of hate.
That's
You're right.
still a lot.
I don't know. 70% of
God.
I was
it's like a
originally
30% good.
I mean, it was okay. It
Yeah.
wasn't
Almost
great.
said the word great just now, and I was
I did.
So that's
I
a
did.
3 out of 10,
slap
right?
you
So
in the face.
you know what?
Say it.
You know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna 60% Uncharted hate.
You, did, so
for
you,
Jerrett.
you definitely didn't love it. I don't remember your take on it, to be honest.
There we go.
I actually don't remember much of what you said about it.
Basically, sum it up. She hates it. I was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
it wasn't great. It had
Not as
flaws.
strong.
Nothing
Not
stellar
strong.
in any case.
And so we're gonna move on from that. But the whiteboard is here, and the whiteboard is to stay, and we will be tallying
Are
up
we
whatever we
going to
want.
reset F-bombs?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
F-bomb's
Okay.
good as 0. F-bomb.
There we go.
F-bomb.
Only Mogan f bombs though,
Yeah.
specific to Mogan only because
What
I guess
is-
she now
what
gets
does
in trouble.
everybody
I
else get?
fucking what?
That's right. You can.
Can we get visits from me Lord Jerrett?
I mean, that one's hard to track. The board's full right
Can we
now.
have a
We'll have
bigger
to come-
whiteboard? I already want a bigger whiteboard. I already want something bigger.
This board needs to be filled. This whole wall behind us. All right, but we're recording
Your
a little.
Team Chat Patreon dollars at work, everybody.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
See,
Finally,
bringing
they get something
great
out of it.
new improvements to the show each and every week. It's great. But that's patreon.com/Team Chat Podcast. Well, we don't have a song contest winner yet due to the fact that we're recording a mere 2 days after our previous recording of an episode. So we haven't had enough time for a full rotation of amount of time to go by to allow proper time for a winner to correctly guess. I'll get it out eventually.
You struggled through that one, buddy.
Put too many words in there.
But you get the gist.
Get the gist, exactly. But stick around for the end of this episode where we'll have a new song contest ready to go.
Who's doing it this week?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
No,
Because
wait,
so far, the future
Sorry for
winner,
outing us.
the future winner will have a choice, and if not, well, I'll hit somebody up to get us a song.
to make the phone calls.
Worry not. Yeah.
You go through the
I'll reach out.
Rolodex you got.
I'll reach out. But our topic for today, as today is actually Halloween.
Spooky.
It is very
We almost
spooky.
committed a cardinal sin because we were planning on doing this topic last week, and then I realized, hold up now. This episode would go out on Halloween. We cannot do this a week early. We have to do this topic today. And this topic is Horror Games Volume 2. Last year we talked about horror
Make
games.
your water hag noise.
Yeah, there
Was
you
that
go.
what it was?
I don't know. Yeah, it was just more of a cackle because it was a witch at first. But last year we talked about horror games. Zach, I believe you talked about Resident Evil for GameCube.
Resident Evil. Great game.
I talked about Until Dawn, a stellar horror game, and you talked about. I cannot remember now. What you talked about.
Can't remember you. Who are you?
No, I actually can't remember
I
mine
don't remember
either.
either. I didn't even. I actually, when you said volume 2, I was like, what? I was like, we did a volume 1.
You know, I
When did that happen?
I hear it because well, I'll go back and
What
figure
did
it
I
out.
talk
54.
about? Scary. I love scary games.
I know.
I had to have talked about.
That's why I have it on the tip of my tongue. The tip.
I hope it wasn't what I'm going to talk about today.
No.
No, it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't.
Well,
What
now
could it have been?
there
I
it
don't
is.
know.
Hold on. I'm going to do a little bit
It
of research
wasn't
on this.
Outlast.
No. Ooh, no, it was.
Yeah.
was.
We talked about
Maybe it
Outlast.
was.
Yeah, it was because I remember that as the
Okay,
cover art.
okay,
The cover art. We
gosh.
talked about Outlast. Yeah.
Okay,
Ooh,
gotcha.
glad I didn't play that one then this year
Yeah.
because I totally forgot
Close
about that.
call.
But yeah, so last year it was Resident Evil for the GameCube, Until Dawn, and Outlast, and now we are back, each of us with a brand new horror game for us to talk about. Who would like to go first?
Mine's really, really good, so I don't think I should go first. I think one of you weak sauce people. I'm just kidding. I don't care.
I feel like mine is weak sauce.
So do you want to go?
Sure.
Start us off.
All right. Shit. Okay.
Gotta collect my thoughts. I didn't think I was
So
going this way.
I do want to give the caveat. That sure. The caveat that I was going to play inside and I didn't.
That's fine.
So I was going to put more effort. So I was really excited because you guys brought it up. You guys, you should get. I thought that we were doing this episode last week, and so there's no excuse really. I had plenty of time to cover it. I bought Inside. I haven't played it, so I'm going to go with its predecessor. Is that
There you go.
maybe an
Yeah.
accurate term? Maybe,
Sure.
maybe not. Of Limbo.
Oh, yes.
Limbo
Which-
is definitely the predecessor.
Yeah,
Like,
in horror games, a little bit of an extreme label for Limbo. I think horror is definitely, might not be exactly reserved for Limbo, but I'll try to make an argument of why maybe it should be.
I think it could be
Yeah.
categorized as that.
And I think I've talked about Limbo on another episode.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's been a long time.
2D scrolling games. I don't know. It's
was
not
it
really
the
2D.
one where we talked about the spider, maybe?
Yeah, we definitely touched on the spider.
Yeah, no,
Limbo-
it's been a long time.
okay,
So we
well,
can definitely
regardless.
go for a refresher.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, most people are familiar with Limbo. It got a lot of attention when it came out, and even years after, I think still people were like, "That was a really."
I mean, it's
great.
still a very beloved game.
It is. It's a really beloved game, and as it should be. It's very well deserved of what it did and how it kind of affected later games, and you see the art style even being used in other games. And I got it kind of right when it came out. Jesus, I think I was in college. I think it was a while ago.
It's been out for
It's
a
been
while.
at least
How old
5
we are?
years. I
Oh,
think it's been a
God.
while. And I didn't know much about it except for the look of it. I think I saw something on IGN maybe of the black and white and the bleak sort of 2D side scroller, and I was like, how fun can 2D side scroll really be? And
Oh, come on.
I know. Tisk tisk
Putting
on
a lot
me.
of judgment
You
out there.
deserve a slap on the wrist for that one.
But I was like, it'll be like it's an Xbox Live Arcade game. There's not going to be depth to it. It'll be something I'll play before I go to bed. And, you know. And little did I know that Limbo provided with some of the most memorable visual experiences that I've had in a video game.
Nice.
It is truly remarkable, the art direction of that game. I think that is really what stands out the most. I mean, the gameplay and the mechanics of it are wonderful, and I'll touch on it, but really the first thing you're hit with from Limbo is what the game looks like. And it is, like I've said, black and white, tones of gray, very dark, 2D, silhouette. Your character is silhouetted, and so you're a boy, and it's just like a shadow of a boy almost.
You do
and
have white eyes, don't you?
I
Like
think you
little
do.
kind of semi-glowing white eyes.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can totally make out small features, but for the most part, you almost feel like a shadow in this world. And
Almost kind of looks like Calvin from Calvin and
yeah,
Hobbes.
sure, I'll take it.
Well,
And
the motion passes.
yeah, and speaking of like the world, it's a forest is where you start. So you're in this forest, and though it's 2D, it feels 3-dimensional. I mean, it has a very deep sort of depth of field that goes back a far way, which is great. I mean, it adds so much to the game, and you're just there, and you start out, and I'm explaining something that I'm sure a lot of people have done, but if you haven't, it's you start out and you just start walking, and there's no tutorial, there's no here's the story, here's some text before you start. There's none of that. You just kind of get into it, and immediately you get a real sense of danger, of I want to use the word horror because I do think what the game's trying to attempt, and I ultimately think it's successful, is a form of psychological horror. It's not so much of it's not so much of a, it's like expressionism. It's something that it's a feeling of what maybe the inside of this kid's mind might be like, and an answer comes in the end that's ambiguous of maybe what he's going through. It feels it's obviously like, literally a journey, but it's also, it feels like a mental journey. It really feels like you're going into something that's, it's very symbolic. It feels like a giant metaphor. And this has been discussed endlessly online of like what's really happening. But you go along, and I don't remember the first actual creature you encounter, but one of the, you do have to kind of get across a river, you have to kind of move a box and climb up a tree. And so there are like mechanics to the game which make it really entertaining and fun. And it's, ultimately sort of a puzzle or platformer. It's really just you trying to figure out how to progress further down the road. But one of the most memorable moments, and I'm sure we've talked about it, is the spider. And so that's really when the game, as much as it feels, scary, bleak, and otherworldly and whatever, it doesn't really feel horrific until you've come into contact with that first creature, the spider. And it is... But like so you kind of come up to this tree and its leg comes out, and it's not a small spider; it's a big spider. It's 4 times the size of you or something like that, 2 or 3 times. And it's got the leg that comes out, and you don't really know. And if you're playing it for the first time, you don't really know what's going on. You don't know if you can fight or really run or jump. You know you can jump, but you don't know like, oh, maybe I have to like fight this thing. And you get closer to it, and the leg kind of goes up, and it's this really interesting moment that you're still confused about, and then it comes right down on top of your head, and you go, "Whoa!" Like that is such a tone setter.
Yeah,
and it skewered your whole body, and it throws you. Have you never played Limbo?
I mean, I have, but still, like hearing you describe it, it's just like, oh god, it never gets old.
It never gets old, and you go, and I remember being like, "Whoa."
It's unexpected.
Very unexpected.
Because like you said, the art style is not necessarily one that lends itself to, other than being dark and dreary.
But there's no like blood.
Yeah.
It's not like red. Yeah.
It's not like you're setting it up like a Resident Evil is or something like that. You're thinking it's going to be like a little bit of a puzzler.
Yeah.
And then that happens.
And then that happens.
Shatters your innocence.
It does. It shatters your innocence. And it's a great technique by the developers because again, I'm sure everyone got skewered by it. You have to.
I got skewered by it multiple times.
I wonder if there's a trophy for not getting skewered the first time.
They actually, if I remember correctly, they have great achievements in that game.
They're just things that you have to. It's not like you complete an action and then it gives you an achievement. Well, I will say I played this on Steam, so it might have a slightly different model than how it does it on Xbox. But in Steam, you would like find these little glowing orbs, and you'd pick those up, and those would be the achievements. Because it's like I think there's even one at the very beginning of the game.
If you go backwards,
you turn around and walk backwards.
Right.
Oh, who doesn't do that?
And
every platforming game, you have to go backwards first. That is the basics of puzzle platformer. You never go forward. You always go back.
It's an Easter egg. Yeah. And then that's a tone setter. And what you continue to face in Limbo is increasingly more human involved. Like you run into other kids eventually. You run into more spiders. Like the world starts to develop and grow. Like this is not an uninhabited place. There are people here. There's kids in cages. There's dead bodies of kids that you have to use to get across certain rivers. There's
pretty morbid.
It's super morbid. Yeah, and it's like kids.
And you said this might not be a horror game. Come on.
My point is like besides for the jump scare I obviously just described, it's more atmospheric. It's like you'll see the kid lying there and you'll go and it's not like horrific. It's not like gory. It's just a dead body in a body of water. And that is horrific, but it's also there's something tame about it. There's something, it doesn't feel very in your face, but it seeps in. Obviously, I still, you can still have these images of you pulling the body over and then getting on it and like having to use it to like get across the waters. And that in and of itself is like, well, it's just like pretty, and that's why it's like psychological. It's very different of a
you don't
experience.
learn that in high school life skills class.
Yeah, I used it. And I remember there was a kid in the cage, and there's those creatures that suck on your head.
Oh, I hated those.
That was one of the more like for me. I was like more comedic for me. It's like a thing that if you walk under it, it will get onto your head, and it will make you kill yourself.
Oh,
it will take you to a body of water
right.
and make you drown yourself unless you can find
Those
a plant.
bastards.
Well, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, the world will change from a forest to a more industrial environment and then ultimately a city. And it's not a long game. It's actually, for me, like a perfect amount. It'll take you like a week if you play a couple hours every night or something like that. And you get to a city, and you do, as you're playing, it's like a painting, and it's morphing around you, and it's a slow burn for sure. It's nothing. It's something you think about well after you finish it and be like, what was that exactly, and what did that represent? And it feels like that, it feels symbolic and full of metaphors, and certainly the ending, which I guess I won't give away, there's so much ambiguity in it, and you don't know. It's hard to make heads or tails of really what's happening, but you feel like you get, oh, that's where I was supposed to go. This is what I'm supposed to do, and it all kind of closes in on itself.
And it just kind of ends.
And it leaves you there. There was a game that we recently played where it just kind of ended. I can't remember. But anyways, it just kind of leaves you there and left to just do it again. And in limbo.
Yep.
It's what, purgatory. Is limbo and purgatory synonymous?
They're the same thing.
Yeah, it's just the place you don't go here, hell or heaven.
Yeah.
And people talk about that. They're like, oh, well, that's what it's like. It's like he's moving towards heaven, and then nothing happens. And it's like, that in and of itself is a little horrific. You know, it's a little bit, it's tame in the sense of the action and the amount of scares, but it's very heavy in the amount of thought and feeling. I mean, very atmospheric for sure.
Yeah. It doesn't even have a soundtrack, really. I feel like it's all just footsteps and like water dripping, things like that. But there's like no saws and stuff like that. Whenever you get to the part that's like the saws.
Is a saw.
Yeah, there's like a whole section that's like a mining facility or something like that.
Like sawed in half.
Yeah, it was so hard.
Yeah, really. It's not a terribly easy game.
No.
There's plenty of moments where you're like, how do I... Yeah, it does. It starts off kind of pretty tame, but it gets to points where like, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah. There were a few points in my playthrough I was like, all right. Well, I might be done. Because, like I said before, more puzzle-centered games like that usually aren't necessarily my thing.
Go ahead.
But I mean, I did get through it, and I did enjoy the experience with it. But it's still, like, I get really frustrated by puzzles easily. So I'm like,
I think it's a masterpiece. I really do. I think it's one of the best games I've played. And real quick, I was thinking about when Jerrett was playing Portal, and he was like, I'm on level like 16 or 17, and I'm like, you're like almost done. And I was like, oh.
And he's like, I think I'm still in the tutorial.
I was like, no, that's the game.
Jerrett.
Jared's relationship with puzzlers.
Yeah, exactly. See, it just doesn't go well for me. I get very frustrated.
It's a classic story. Oh, Jerrett.
I just love that.
In case anybody doesn't already know, I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when it came out, but both Limbo and Inside are now being sold as a combo pack for both Xbox and PS4. Mm-hmm. And for a while there, Inside was only an Xbox exclusive. So if you thought you missed it, you didn't. You can get them both together, relive the horror, make a night of it.
Because I haven't played Inside. None of us have, right? None of us have played Inside.
No, I
but
want
it's supposedly
to very badly.
Very similar in style. I mean, same developer, but it's very similar in style to Limbo. So
it looks beautiful. I mean, the trailer looks like a really atmosphere. I mean, it just looks like a piece of little art to me.
So I stand by what I said earlier. Then everything that you've just said makes me think that you would like my game so much. It's the vanishing of Ethan Carter.
What is that?
Oh,
bye-bye.
Was he done?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, no, he was clearly done.
Yeah, clearly.
He got to the end of the game.
How old is that game?
Okay, so actually it's only from 2014.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I thought for sure that it was originally for PS3 because I bought the digital copy. I didn't buy the physical one. And I thought for sure it was older than I thought it was, but it launched on PS4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I thought it was a PS3 game.
No, it launched in the early days of the PS4 and Xbox. So it was actually originally available for both, just in their way earlier years. And I was like, there's no way PS4 is that old, is it? But it is. It's from as old as 2014. So The Vanishing of Ethan Carter was actually originally put on my radar by longtime listener Brandon. Cool. So he mentioned it ages ago. Do you remember that?
With us?
I think I do,
air?
a long time ago. But speaking of that,
On air.
before we jump from mine to you,
yeah.
from yours to mine, he wrote in something on our Facebook that I want to share.
He did, yes. Thank you for remembering that. I read it too.
By mentioning his name. And I was like, oh, I knew I was forgetting something.
Thank you, Brendan.
Everyone's
Notes!
Notes.
They would be useful. Anyway, sorry.
So Brandon, I don't even think it was like an in-depth kind of thing. I think it was just like a comment on our Facebook, or he wrote into the show or something. And he's the one that mentioned The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. And I was like, why have I heard of that game before? It's because I had it sitting in my Steam wish list for 1,000 years. And then I finally decided, you know what, I am going to play it. I rewatched the trailer and I was like, you know what, I'm still interested. If it's been this long and I still want to play this game, I'm just going to play it. I realized immediately after starting it, I had basically no solid concept of what the game was going to be like, except for a very vague feeling that it was some sort of mystery game.
Okay.
I got so much more than I was expecting, you guys.
Nice.
I'm really pleased with this game. So for starters, I don't know how it is on Steam or how it is on Xbox. On PS4, again, I thought it was older than it actually was. It's a beautiful game.
Is it?
Like, the environments are truly stunning. Like, you start out and the way that they place you into this game is really beautiful. So it's all first-person perspective, and you are playing as a detective named Paul Prospero, I think his name is. Just call him old Prospo. So you're old Detective Prospo. And you are basically walking through like an old train tunnel, like an old brick train tunnel, and you can see the light at the end. And as you're walking down the tunnel, you can hear the voice of Detective Prospero, and he's kind of describing his circumstances to you, but in a very classic kind of film noir way, where it might even be a little overdone. Like some of the narrative is a little bit on the nose, but it's not to the point that it would turn you off from the game. It really just kind of makes you think like, okay, here I am. I'm an old-timey detective. I've got a couple of tricks up my sleeve. I'm probably some old grizzled dude. And you exit the tunnel, and you just come out into this beautiful piece of wilderness, like with old train tracks running through it, and you're like, holy crap, this is not what I was expecting out of this game. And something that immediately hits you is the quality of the sounds. Like the trees creaking in the wind, like that kind of stuff. I was just like, wow, this game is going to be really intense right off the bat. And then I walked a little bit further down the path and got my first jump scare. So it does start you off pretty...
It is a legit horror.
No. Well, no, actually, we're going to talk about it because it's a little bit of both. So the game also doesn't give you like any real tutorial. All it says is when you first start it up, even before the narrative begins, it comes up with this little line that's like, "The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is a narrative experience that does not hold your hand." And I was like, tough words, game, okay. Yeah. I realized that I interpreted it kind of wrong. It seemed like kind of a harsh warning of like, oh, it's going to be like Dark Souls level. That's really not what they meant, I don't think.
Tell you what's
all it means is that there's no like tutorial. There's no real workaround or like ways to get hints, for example. Like the game does clearly give you some direction, which we'll talk about later, but they're definitely not telling you where to go. You have to figure it out on your own. So you just kind of get spit out of this tunnel and you're walking around and you know that you're heading to a place called Red Creek Valley, which is a town because you received a letter from a boy named Ethan Carter. And he's basically talking in his narrative about how, back in, I've seen things that no man should ever see and stuff like that. But what he's actually talking about is he's basically a paranormal detective because he intentionally investigates things that aren't really supposed to be in our world. And he talks about even later down the game, he's like, I've been to so many worlds. Every time you go and come back, you lose another piece of yourself and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, this is some pretty interesting stuff. It's less about the paranormal and more about alternate realities and like parallel universes and that kind of stuff. But you know that Ethan Carter has gone missing because the kinds of things that he has described to you in his letter, he doesn't say what he knows they are, but you get the feeling that he knows what he's investigating. He's like, I know that I'm not going to find him. I know that I'm already too late to find him, but I'm going to do everything I can to see if I can bring him home. So you go into this town. And the entire setup is really interesting. You basically cross over this old, decaying railroad bridge, and one of the very first things you encounter is like, well, first of all, this is going to be very spoiler heavy. I'm not done with the game, but it is going to have, like, I'm definitely going to give away story details, so just be aware of that. So you come across a small little train car, like not even a big one, a little small train car, and the first thing it says is blood, and it's like covered in blood, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. So after you've already kind of gotten through your jump scares of the traps in the forest that were just kind of there at random, you come across this super bloody train car and you're like, okay, I see that I'm supposed to do things with it, but I don't know what yet. It's missing a couple of pieces, so you're like, okay, I have to go find the pieces. You go a little bit further down the tracks, not even that far, a little bit further, and you come across what I am initially thought was just a pile of blood, and then the game politely informed me through its labeling mechanism. It was like severed legs, and I was like, what now? So I looked closer at the blood, and indeed there were 2 severed legs just kind of chilling in the blood,
shit.
and I was like, wow, okay, this is a lot of blood, and it's not even like a little, it's a lot of blood.
Probably
and like,
no survivors.
No, and so it's so like so Paul doesn't
Pull
really.
Tourniquets, they do wonders.
Yeah.
So Detective Prospero, he's not really a wordy guy, but one of the ways that the game will kind of give you... He's not like that.
Jesus Christ.
So one of the ways that hey, that's not even mine. I didn't say anything.
You went like, fuck.
Close enough.
So anyways, what was I saying? Fuck, now I forgot.
Sorry. He's not a wordy guy.
Yeah, no, he's not a wordy guy, but like basically you will see his thoughts come up on screen as just kind of like very brief single word thoughts. So like you come across the pool of blood and it's like blood, survivor, body, corpse, etc. And so you're like, okay, I know that I need to continue investigating these severed legs. So then you just turn very slightly to your right and you're like, well, the blood keeps going that way. And so you follow the trail of blood and find the rest of the body. And you're like, okay, he's real dead. He definitely did not survive. Really the whole way that they set up this very first puzzle of the game was just the pacing is what I think was really good about it. There's a very subtle soundtrack. It's really not that big of a soundtrack. It's really nature sounds, a little bit of underlying music, and just like the crunch of your shoes on the ground. And so this game really kind of is both a mystery and a puzzle horror game because basically what you're trying to do is solve how a bunch of people died and or got murdered by piecing together altered pasts. So whenever, I guess because of his innate powers or whatever, Detective Prospero, he can like see the past. So if he touches a dead body and you only have a few of the clues that you need, a little kind of portal will open up. But it's just a little one. It's not enough to see what really happened. So then you have to go back and find the other clues. And then once you have all the clues that you need, and you're never really sure when you have all of them, you're just kind of winging it, you go back to the body and touch it again, and the portal opens up. And all of a sudden, you're not in the real world anymore. You're in this kind of altered reality past world. And you're viewing things not as you can't affect the past, but you're like viewing what happened. And in this way, the game lets you figure out and piece together how this particular person died, what the order of events were, the way that they have you do the chronology of the murder is really, it's such a good way to put the story together from your own perspective. I can't stress this enough. It's really good. Mm-hmm. And so you put together the first murder and you're like, okay, I got this. Now I have to go find the rest of the people. Eventually you do get to the actual town of Red Creek Valley. There's no one there. Like, not only is the first guy that you came across dead, the entire town, you know it's deserted.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask you. I was like, so is this body, is it that kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is Ethan Carter, you found him. And then it's like going backwards in time to retell, or if it was just some random other person.
So it's a little bit of both. So you come across all of the bodies that I've found so far are integral to the story because the story surrounds the Carter family as a whole. And it's really just about them as far as I can tell. So when you get to the town, all of the houses, the windows are boarded up, they're all bombed out. You go into the buildings and they look like they've just been utterly destroyed. So you absolutely know that you're alone out here. That does take a turn a little bit later on, but initially you're like, I am all alone. Not only is Ethan Carter not here, none of the rest of the Carter family is either, because they are all dead. You will find their bodies. They are very bloody. It's gross. So that's kind of how you start off the game. Now, I was already hooked when I solved the first little murder piece of the mystery. What really got me sold on the game is that Ethan is apparently like a really creative kid. He's kind of like an artsy kid. He's probably around 12 or 13 when you're investigating his disappearance. And he loved to write stories. And so I was just walking through the forest and I saw this thing kind of off to the side. And I was like, what's that shiny thing over there? And no like explanation, no real delving deep into what it was. I just kind of walked over to it and it looked like a misplaced stoplight. And it had like 4 panels on it. And there was a brief little puzzle where you had to figure out the panels. And then the instant that you figured it out, the world like kind of changed to this altered reality all of a sudden. And it was me and an astronaut, like in full astronaut gear in the forest. And I was like, what is happening? And the way the game set it up was amazing. Like this really interesting soundtrack immediately started up. And the astronaut is like, oh, there, he doesn't say anything, but he like motions at you. And then he disappears and he's a little further down the path. And this was like the first exciting thing that happened where you have to run after him. And he keeps like disappearing and teleporting and you have to stay on his track. And if you stay on his track long enough, eventually a thing comes out of space and comes down to get him, and it's a UFO, and he disappears, and then you go into the UFO, and then you're in space. And the whole time there's no explanation. And I was like, what is happening? And then finally, like you're in your little space pod and you're looking out into space and you hear like a click behind you and a hatch has opened up and there's just a little 1-page story that Ethan wrote on it. And it's about the astronaut. And when you're done reading the note, you blink back into actual reality. And when you're back in reality, what you realize is that you found a story that he wrote and you're in a little wooden spaceship that he built out in the woods. And there's like little articles laying around that are like notes about NASA or things that he found that inspired him to write the story. And it's like, wow, like it didn't explain it at all. So you like had this amazing sequence of chasing an astronaut through the woods with no explanation. It made it really stick with me, and it's still my favorite part of the game so far is the astronaut.
Nice.
Cool.
But so what really makes the horror is that as you continue to progress and find more pieces of the past, you realize that Ethan was in way over his head. Because essentially the reason that I brought up H.P. Lovecraft is because anybody that has read or been exposed to anything that you could classify as Lovecraftian horror, the game is very much all about that. It's about that quiet, sneaking, creeping horror that gets into people's hearts and minds and their very souls and corrupts them from the inside out. And you can tell through pieces of the past that that's what was happening all around Ethan. And for whatever reason, so far, he was kind of the only one that was immune to it per se, but he was also becoming the victim of it. So you already know that shit's going down and it's not going to be good, whatever it is. And that's kind of where I've like stopped right now, is I'm to the point where I have found one of the first things that I would actually classify as a real monster. And not in the past, in the current present world. Yeah. And it killed me. And I was so shell-shocked, I was like, I'm done for the night. So, it was actually very scary because you were down in a mine, it was horrible, this thing was there, and then it was there, and then you died, and I was like, okay, that's enough for one night. I'm going to go take a breather.
Turn it on.
I'm just going to turn it off. Turn all the lights on. Turn all these lights on.
Play some fun music. SpongeBob SquarePants.
Exactly. So it's that kind of game where it does have some jump scares, but the true horror is in the story itself. And the writing of the game is phenomenal. And the way they pace it out, I think that not every gamer would enjoy it. It might be considered a little too slow for some people. The puzzles are they're not easy. Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't like puzzles, I don't think it would be a very good game for you either. But I am loving it so far, and I think that anybody that loves the collected works of H.P. Lovecraft or his contemporaries would really enjoy it also.
Nice.
Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
Interesting.
Question mark out of 10. I have to finish it.
Yeah. But so far, loving it.
So far, so good.
It's great.
So far,
Sounds
it's
cool.
a 10. Yeah.
That does sound really good. Like, honestly, like the story part of it. See, okay, I'll amend my statement a little bit here about the puzzle games. Puzzle games that are more like Portal and stuff like that. Like, I know Legend of Zelda has, Breath of the Wild has puzzles. All of the Legend of Zelda games have puzzles. So far, I've enjoyed all of those because it's not like the game built around puzzles, you know? So I don't mind things like that. It's the ones that are purely more like Portal or even Limbo in a sense where it is just like everything you do is a puzzle trying to figure out the next step. And that's where it gets a little hairy for me.
You gotta get better at using your brain, my man.
You know, sometimes sometimes I want to play games to escape.
To learn. I came to escape.
But anyway, so it's so cool. That's really cool. I'm actually very interested in that game, and I'm kind of glad you haven't hit the end. And weren't
the whole reason
it's a game that went under the radar.
I feel like
it is. Actually, the reason that I think you might like it, in addition to everything that you just said, which lines up with Vanishing of Ethan Carter really well, is it reminds me a lot of Firewatch.
Oh, okay.
In the way that it's done, I immediately was like, oh, this is kind of my new horror Firewatch.
Yeah, cool.
So if you were looking for a mystery and a horror that isn't necessarily along the lines of Resident Evil or Outlast or those other types of action horror or even survival horror games, this is the one for you. And I think that you would really, anybody that likes that type of gaming will enjoy it.
Nice. Cool. Very cool. Well, what we alluded to earlier is our good friend Brandon had sent in a message to us on our Facebook, or a post actually, so you can go back and read this. But it was in response to our episode on favorite monsters. So he said, I listened to your favorite monster episode, so here I am to share mine. And the Facebook app is being a dick.
I know, the Facebook app freaking blows, man.
Facebook blows. All right, here we go.
It just blows.
Now, some of you might take issue with my choice since it's not a creature, but a town. I'm speaking, of course, of Silent Hill. Ooh. It is my favorite because it literally manifests nightmares into reality. In Silent Hill 1, we experienced the nightmare of Alessa. Is that how I'm saying?
Alessa, okay. Yeah.
A psychic girl whose power is such that her thought becomes reality. And when she is impregnated with the seed of Samael, she is tormented by the demon with a terrible nightmare, a nightmare she unintentionally makes real. By doing this, she corrupts the spiritual power within Silent Hill, which directly leads to the events of Silent Hill 2 and explains why we see the things that we do in that game. In Silent Hill 2, we play as James Sunderland, and the monsters we encounter are manifestations of his guilt and his desire to be punished. And the deeper we go into Silent Hill, the deeper we dive into James' psyche, and the more horrifying the monsters become. This is why Silent Hill is my favorite monster, because nothing is more terrifying than our own demons. I love other monsters, of course, Lickers, Chimeras, and Nemesis from the Resident Evil series, Ludwig the Accursed, Vicar Amelia, and pretty much everything else from Bloodborne, the Gaping Dragon, Manus and Nido from Dark Souls, and many, many more. I love monsters. I love the way they look, sound, and make me feel. I love how they spark my imagination and how more often than not, do you have it pulled up? Because...
Do I have what pulled up?
Oh, so I thought you were going to this because...
I was looking up Silent Hill stuff.
Because this is like, every time I try to scroll, it goes blank.
Oh, forget it.
But anyway, so the rest
It's a mystery. We'll just
it's
talk
her.
Well, yeah,
how
you
we
can go
think
back.
he
So he says that he's a really big fan of monsters, and then he gives a PS about the about developers because he also listened to our last episode, and he's like, basically, fuck greedy developers.
He had some choice words.
Choice
words.
Going on the whiteboard.
Yeah. So Brandon wrote that in. Thank you, Brandon, for sending that note, and that is an excellent pick. Like I hadn't thought about that, but
I accidentally pulled it up in Italian.
Well, there we go. That won't help us
said
out.
this is not helpful.
But anyway, so thanks, Brandon, for writing in and sharing some of your favorite monsters with us. Okay, well, my game is one, we've alluded to it in the past episode also, and I actually even thought about doing the monsters from this game for some of my picks in our episode about monsters. All right, well, I'll pop my knuckles too.
We're having a little contest.
Right.
Oh, mine were all louder than both of yours. Okay, ooh, those were good ones.
How about this?
I can just do it.
Oh, God.
Owned. I win. It's the webbing in my finger.
Oh.
It's not.
Oh.
That's a good trick. That's
a
a
good
fun party
right?
trick right there.
Oh,
Sick.
stop it. Everyone's like, stop. Okay, go ahead.
So I thought about doing the monsters from this game in the episode that we talked about monsters. But the game is Dead Space, the original one from 2008.
2008?
Yeah.
Christ.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, how old is Dead Space 2?
2011 and 2013.
Oh, God.
So the Dead Space series is old.
Man, I always thought that the first
Ancient.
one was like the 2011 thing.
No.
Wow, just kidding.
So
I was real wrong.
Didn't EA make Dead Space?
They did.
Yeah.
And actually, and we talked about it a little bit last week too, because we talked about how, it was developed by Visceral. But I was going back and like double checking my notes, and I actually like in the articles and stuff I was reading, it didn't say anything about visceral, and I was like, oh no, we made an error. But because it was developed
We've never made an error before.
I know, but I was like, here we are, caught out. Man, it's bad. Falling apart in these last 10 episodes before 100. But anyways, because it was said it was developed by EA Redwood Shores, which later became known as Visceral Games.
Ooh, sneaky.
So,
good save.
Technically still correct. But anyway, so Vanishing of Ethan Carter actually sounded somewhat similar to not to Dead Space, but another game that I was thinking about.
Say, in what way?
that I was thinking about playing this year for the horror game, which was The Evil Within. It kind of seems somewhat similar to those two.
I still want to play Evil Within.
I do too. And I thought about doing Evil Within because Evil Within 2 just came out. But then I was like, no, I've got these other games in my backlog that I need to play. I'd been sitting on Dead Space for a while. I was like, it's time to try this one out. So Dead Space, like I said, came out in 2008. And it starts with you are engineer Isaac Clarke, and you're on board the shuttle with your crew members Zach Hammond and Kendra Daniels. You're heading out to fix this bigger ship called the Ishimura. And basically all you know is it's broken. They're not sending or receiving any signals. You have no contact with the ship, but you just think it's been broken down.
You're in space, right?
You are in space.
Okay, just checking. Because for a hot second, I was visualizing actual boats and freighter ships.
You're
and I was like,
space.
wait, I think my setting is wrong.
Yes, it is actual space. And so you're on this mission to fix the ship. And when you get there, things immediately go wrong, as you would expect with a horror game. Now, Dead Space is a survival horror, is in the survival horror genre. So anyway, you get to the ship, you're immediately attacked by these beings. That is in a really good scene because you're just in this like landing area of the Ishimura. You're sent in a separate room to go check a computer, and when you're in there looking at all your crew members, because there are the two expendables. There can't just all be main characters.
Yeah.
They're the guys who have to immediately alert you to the terror. And so you're in this other room messing with the computer, trying to get some systems online or doors to unlock, something like that. And the lights start flickering, and you see this beast come out and attack and kill these two other crew members who are with you. And Hammond and Kendra are able to like kind of fight it off. And you're like, what the hell is this thing? And because it's humanoid, but it also has like these long arms with long blades that come off, and it walks all like really tall.
Manicure.
There's nothing manicured about this. Nothing nice about it at all. But anyway, so you discover that these creatures, they're called necromorphs, and this is what I wanted to talk about and there are all many different shapes and sizes of necromorph.
Oh, so this is just a type of necromorph.
Right. So the main basic necromorph is what you run into first. So the main issues with the game, I won't go through the full like breakdown of what happens, but at
bummer.
Oh, is that it?
No, that's a pregnant necromorph. That one.
Oh, gross, Zach.
That's the original necromorph.
Oh,
that's very frightening.
Yeah. So
stomach's like open or something.
Yeah,
is it intestines?
Yes, because you later discover necromorphs are the reanimated corpses of the crew members of the Ishimura.
Oh no! Spoiler alert, dude! For a game from 2008.
I know. I won't give away the full total ending of the game just because. I only actually finished playing it today. I was like busting it out trying to get it done to finish up for this review for this episode. But yeah, I actually
You're frowning a lot. Oh God!
I just think about like drawing
that one. I think is
scaring myself.
That one I didn't see.
This is like fan art. I think.
That might be concept art or something like that. But there's also these might be necromorphs from Dead Space 2 and 3.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, that one that had the really long, which we'll put the picture in and all that. Don't worry. But yeah, so that's what you run into first. So basically, the rest of the game, and your ship is destroyed that you landed in because as you're trying to attempt to land, something interferes with it, or there's this asteroid field around the ship because the ship that you're going to get is like a mining vessel. It's called a planet cracker, basically.
Oh.
Cool.
And so the rest of the game is pretty much going around the ship, trying to find and fix different things so you can either stay alive in the ship because at one point, like the air becomes polluted and you have to run around. And did I say the name of your character actually?
No?
Isaac Clarke.
Yes, you did.
Okay,
you
okay.
did.
Sorry,
It's
I was like,
so
did I get so far into this?
Not nearly as cool as Detective Paul Prospero.
We can't all have great
We can't all
names.
be that cool.
But anyway, so you're just going around and you're being given missions and things to do by Hammond and Kendra, who are by this point separated into different parts of the ship. And they're like, hey, air systems are going down. You got to go fix it. You go to this floor and fix it, which is how the level system breaks out. Each level takes place on a different part of the ship.
Okay.
And you will sometimes go back and forth and go to the same areas again to fix a different part. But the whole thing is going about through trying to figure out, okay, what the hell happened? Because why are all these monsters here? How did they get here? And you later learn it's because of this mining into this planet where they recovered this artifact called the Marker.
Ooh,
and brought the Marker onto this ship. And that awakened the necromorphs because from this planet down below.
Oh, okay. So the necromorphs were like already something living on this planet.
Yes, because they were down like deep inside it.
Ew, okay. And then you stole their treasure and they get mad.
And they get pissed.
Okay,
yeah, because there's a colony on this planet down below, Aegis 7. And so, yeah, so they get mad. And when they bring the Marker back, the Marker somehow is able to, can you reset the camera real quick? Is able to cause.
It's their GPS system.
Yeah, basically it's what starts the infection.
Oh, okay.
It goes crazy.
Okay,
and so like as the Marker, and like you pick up these audio and video logs from people in the crew and you like everybody seems to slowly go mad and go crazy.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're just trying like, what is going on? And then like Kendra and Hammond start talking about like how they're feeling weird and like seeing things. Like Kendra at one point is like, I just talked to my brother. He was here. But like I haven't seen him, or she might have been like he's been dead for years, something like that. But I just had a conversation with him. I think it's whatever's going on is starting to mess with me.
Oh no!
And so you're just like,
what's her brother's name? Is he single?
It didn't say
is
that.
he hot?
I don't know. You don't see him.
Yeah, the important question.
And so all this is going on, and you're just like, what is happening? And so that is the one thing though, having completed the game, that got a little tiring for me. I will say with this caveat. Stupidly, I decided to play this on the hard difficulty setting.
Ooh,
what were you thinking?
Well, because I'm like, I play games a lot. I can handle a harder difficulty setting.
Easy mode all the way.
Which I should have done. In the time frame I was trying to like finish this game and have thoughts and notes and all that.
It's like the necromorphers, like, get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, it's no fun.
But that's the thing. Sometime near the end of the game, the missions got a little fetch questy feeling to me. And like slightly repetitive, like, okay, I know I got to go fix this thing. It's just like, can we wrap it up a little bit?
Yeah, when you're describing it, I wasn't thinking that it would be so full of maintenance.
Well, I mean, you're an engineer, so that's what you got to do.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like, typically you're like a space marine or something in these games.
You're an engineer, which is
You're
cool.
a nerd.
Which is cool then, because all of your weapons are like engineering tools.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
The gun you start off with is like a plasma cutter, and it basically just has these 3 beams that'll shoot. And then you can also like rotate it to shoot in either vertically or horizontally, the beams. And that's like your main. Then I also pick the other weapons. You have several that you can buy at different points throughout the game. But the main weapons that I stuck with were the plasma cutter, the ripper, which is this really cool, which I used a lot. It's basically like a handsaw, like a circular saw, but it will shoot out a saw blade spinning and it holds it by a tractor beam. So you can just like walk in front and like cut stuff.
Oh,
that's cool.
And its alternate fire is it will just shoot the blade out.
Oh, that's nice.
I also use this one called the contact beam, which basically is like a force shotgun in a way. You have to charge it up and let it go.
Your flat cannon, if you will.
Exactly. And then I also used, what was the other one? Oh, just an assault rifle. So the only like non-engineering used weapon. I had that just for shits and giggles. But anyway, so you also, some mechanics that are introduced in this game too, is you have these 2 modules that fit into your armor, which is a rig system is what it's called, which you should look it up. It's the iconic image of whatever you see whenever you look up Dead Space of your main character is what he's wearing is a rig suit.
Yeah, his helmet's awesome.
Yeah, it's really
like
cool.
Iconic.
And so you have these 2 modules, a stasis module and a kinesis module. Stasis module will slow things down. Mm-hmm. So that could even be pieces of equipment that you need to get past. Like there are a couple points where like doors are like slamming shut because they're malfunctioning, and you shoot them with kinesis and then you can get through. You can also shoot enemies with the kinesis, so it'll slow them down, and you have easier to either get away, shoot them, kill them, whatever. The kinesis module allows you to pick things up and either move them or shoot them. So say the necromorph comes at you, like one of those early ones that I showed you who has the big bladed arms. If you are able to cut off that arm, you can pick up his bladed arm with a kinesis module and shoot it back at him or at another enemy and do damage.
That's fun.
Excellent.
I like that kind of stuff.
So yeah, it's pretty cool how you can use those, and you have to use those to like fix things or to get through some various parts of the levels. So it has a lot of uses, and it's fun how you can interpret those and use those as you will. Now, as I said, it is survival horror. So you are constantly searching for more ammunition, more. Your stasis can run out. And there are some places around where where you can fill it up again, or you can buy stasis modules or collect stasis modules that you can refill it. Your kinesis one never runs out. You can use that unlimited, which I was like, thank God, because I ran out of the stasis one so many times. So I'm just checking through my notes here. And so as the story progresses, you realize that the marker has some sort of religious importance to a church, to a religious group on Earth.
Now it's getting interesting.
Yeah.
Now I'm
Plot
interested.
The Church of Unitology.
Oh, that sounds like just some other tology that we all know of.
Pretty much, right? So you understand that there's more going on behind the scenes, and that you're like, that this church wants this marker, but obviously they don't know what you think. They don't know what's happened here. And you're like, oh, okay, well, obviously, no, they don't need this. And so it's a matter of trying to return the marker to either where it came, do you destroy it? Basically, what are you going to do? Because throughout not only there are other survivors on the ship, like this one mad doctor who's a full-on unitologist, and he's like, we have to embrace this. This is our new ascension, our evolution as humans. This isn't something we should fear. It's it's God's will, all this stuff. And he comes in across your comm every once in a while, and he even creates like a even more mutated necromorph that tries to fight you. So there's all these different things happening. And like I said, there are different ones. Like that one that you should pull up first, that's the pregnant necromorph. Mm-hmm. It will spew other creatures from it.
Gross.
And stuff like that.
Gnarly.
And then later on, there's even this one that's like, has 2 arms, but a really long scorpion tail, and it will fly through the air at you and then land, and it'll whip out its tail.
Oh, awful.
All this
Unacceptable.
Stuff. It's crazy. Others are super fast, and so they move erratically and jump all over the place and everything. And then it'll even introduce harder versions of all these creatures later on by they're just black. And so it's by colored. You can tell when these ones are going to be, they're more armored and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, they're even so. This is a visceral game because we've talked about this before with Dante's Inferno. Remember the babies?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From Dante's Inferno?
Evil baby.
Well, guess what?
Babies.
There were babies on this ship.
Oh,
And so now there are
babies.
They do love evil babies.
they used to crawl around, and then 3 tentacles would shoot up and they'd shoot projectiles at you. Oh, it's
baby killer.
terrifying.
Awful.
I know. I was like, oh, this is a visceral game for sure. For sure.
I feel like Visceral Games has some opinions that they're trying to get across to us.
Yeah. So that's what it becomes. The game develops into is trying to fix the ship, find a way to escape, and figuring out what to do with this mysterious marker. So now I wrote down some pros and cons about this game, because I do have a few of each. I know sometimes in my reviews I'm like, I liked it a lot and didn't really have anything bad to say about it. This game I had some reservations with.
I thought we were going with the percentage hate system now.
Well, yeah, we can go with that.
Yeah,
I'll give my percentage of hate after I read my pros and cons. So the pro, and this is a big pro, I will say, the combat is very innovative and inventive, because it will say this, you figure this out early on in the game, plus there's some, in a load screen, it'll show you, it has tips and stuff that come up. It is more effective to damage the necromorphs and kill the necromorphs by dismembering their limbs, not shooting body mass. Or shooting even for the head. Mm-hmm. You want to cut off their arms or their legs and things like that, which,
cool.
So that's why you have, the plasma cutter, it can shoot vertically or horizontally.
Okay.
Because you can be shooting at an arm, you want to use it vertically.
Nice.
But then you want to cut out their leg, you switch it to horizontal and shoot it that way.
Nice.
And so that's where even the one like the Ripper, that's the saw blade, you shoot out that saw blade, you just go for the legs. You're just cutting down legs and all this other stuff. So that made it very difficult, because especially when there got to be enemies that were very fast, you had to combine it with using the stasis to freeze them, so then you could pop off their limbs, use their limbs in any other way that you can to fight them off. So it just makes it this really interesting dynamic where normally you see an enemy, you just shoot them, and you're like, pull some bullets into them, they drop, you're good. But this one, you could take out their legs and they fall like they're dead, and then start crawling towards you and leaping at you.
No, thank you.
It was ridiculous, and how hard the fighting can be in this game. The other thing I liked about it, and another thing that was a huge plus about it, is there's no HUD.
Oh, I think I remember.
You don't have crosshairs.
That's awesome.
Your weapons will shoot like a laser beam, but you only see that when you have your weapon aimed. Now, fortunately, unlike Resident Evil, you can move while aiming. Because, oh my God, these creatures are fucking fast and they're everywhere. So it's a good thing that you can do that. But there's no HUD. All menus messages, like if whenever Kendra or Hammond will message you and a holographic video will pop up, that all just appears in front of you like projected from your suit. You can move the camera around and still see it. So it's not like you can come around and look at your character and you'll see the holograph in reverse.
Okay.
Same with menus. When you pull up like your inventory, same thing. It pops up. And then it also has a really inventive way of doing your objective marker. It doesn't like have like a dot floating in your screen that as you turn, it just shows your thing. You would click on the right stick, and Isaac would do like a little motion with his hand, and it would project a line down on the ground where you would go. But as soon as you moved, it went away.
Oh, okay.
like that.
So I was just like, man, it's really cool because it was just it added to the horror aspect. That this ship, which is obviously, breaking down, decrepit, black, being overrun by this organic matter that the necromorphs create, it's just this, it allows you to be more encapsulated with the setting and to really take in the setting a lot more. Weapons are fun, like I said, because they all have an alternate mode. Mm-hmm. So the vertical to horizontal shooting, the Ripper either shooting the blade. So it's all this different stuff. The contact beam, which is the charged shotgun, you either do a full charge or you can like plant it into the ground and it'll shoot a shockwave to knock enemies back if you're getting overrun. So there's a lot of cool ways, different infinite ways you can do that. Like I said, the stasis and kinesis is really cool also. And there are also different parts because you're in space where there are either zero gravity, where you have to like jump around to all this different stuff, or taking place in a vacuum, which when there's a vacuum in like you're outside of the spaceship walking on the hull, you have an air tank inside your suit, but it can run out. And if it, and so you're either having to try to find air recharge stations or hopefully you have enough air canisters in your inventory to be able to reload it as you're going out and about.
That's the kind of stuff that would like scare me. I'd be like, no, not like this.
And that of course you're going to get out there and you're going to have to fight something while you're out there, which makes it harder to then, you're conserving oxygen and trying to get the thing done, but you can't because you're having to run from some creature. It gets really hairy sometimes. And then a pro, you die a lot.
Oh, good.
A whole hell of a lot.
That's good.
So, I mean, granted, I said I played it on the hard, but I still died a lot. And I feel like even if you played it on normal, you'd be dying a lot. But some of my cons, and I'll actually move this one later. And this was something I felt slightly was a small design flaw. Horror games are obviously, especially one like this in a survival horror, are supposed to have that tense, dark setting that makes it easier to be scared and like for jump scares to be more effective and different things like that, which this game had aplenty. But sometimes it was too damn dark. Like it was just hard to do anything because I even like had brightness up in the game settings and all that. And it was just too damn hard to see what I was doing, which got very frustrating sometimes. Obviously got through it because I beat the game, but still it was just a little thing. I was like, could have stood to be a little brighter. Con, you die a lot, which is very, very frustrating. Especially like I said, when I got near to the end of the game and I was starting to get a little drugged down by the fetch quest feel of it, I was like, God, come on. Like, I'm tired of dying. I just want to get through it. So that got to be a little annoying. And then this is one that I connected with as I was finishing up, is sometimes like the kinesis, it says you can pick something up like a dismembered limb, throw it at an enemy. There are sometimes even like explosive barrels you can throw and stuff like that. But the aiming sometimes for the kinesis and the stasis both would be very inconsistent. Like you're like,
does suck.
I know my reticle was on that because you can only shoot stasis and things by aiming your gun and it shoots where the gun's pointing. And I'd be like, I pointed that at center mass and it didn't register that I had stasis that guy, and then I wound up dying. Kind of a thing. That got very annoying. That is
very frustrating.
I hardly ever was able to make a severed limb hit.
Aww.
So I'm like, this is supposed to be a mechanic.
Never happened once.
Well, it did a couple times, but like
just
it was supposed
wanted to hit him with a leg in the face.
Seriously, but it was supposed to be a thing where like you could use that to save ammo. But it worked so inefficiently sometimes, it was like, oh, there's no point to even try to use this.
I gotcha.
So that proved to be a little annoying. And sometimes, too, it felt like damage was that your weapons did. Like, I sometimes would have a necromorph on the ground, cut his legs off, and you have the Ripper, and I'm sawing away at his arms, and they will just not. But then, like, I'll do it another time, And
Those puppies will not.
They will not get cut off. But I would do it another time versus the exact same type of enemy, and man, it would like seemingly kill him in 2 seconds.
That's funny.
So it got like, especially, and
Like
again, near the end of the game, I was just like, what the hell? Why am I not killing this guy? I'm using this weapon. I did this exact same thing to him last time before I died by some other creature. Why is it not working now? So there were just a little bit of inconsistencies with it that made it very like, oh my God, are you kidding? Like more frustrating than enjoyable.
If they ever did a Dead Space 3, they should use that kind of stuff to make. Oh, they did?
Yeah,
if they ever make a Dead Space 10, they should.
Should cover my bases.
They should use marketing campaigns that feature like spoofs of infomercials.
Yes. Are you having trouble
with your cutter?
bones?
But yeah, but I mean, I can also say this game was made in 2008, so that could just be a sign of the times, sign of the game's age. I'm used to having more precise controls with that, with more up-to-date game, with more current games. So, and maybe I also could have just been real bad at it.
Maybe you're just bad at sawing off arms.
Yeah. So, but the game overall was very enjoyable. Especially as the story progressed and later missions, the story started picking up, and I was like, "Oh, there's a lot more going on here than just the ship is being overrun by aliens." So, so that was nice too. That it did have a rewarding story. But overall, this is kind of my overall closing thought on it. It was gruesome and horrifying, but not all that terrifying. Once you got used to what the enemies were going to be, and you saw them and could interact with them, they weren't as scary anymore. Granted, they look disgusting and they're terrifying to see them, but in terms of like the overall feeling of horror, wasn't necessarily there for me.
Okay, that's valid and something that's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, there were plenty of jump scares. Like I said, sometimes you'd come across a dead body and it would leap up at you. And all, typical horror zombie, especially zombie fare.
Such a cheap scare.
That happens. But so that was kind of my overall thought. Like the story was great. The combat was very inventive, but it was missing that bit of actual, like, made me terrified horror. So I'm interested to see, like, I'm interested enough to play Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3. I actually think I have Dead Space 3 because of PS Plus. So I'm interested enough to go back and see if that changes into Dead Space 2. But, like I said, overall, it was a fun game.
What's the percentage?
I would say...
How much do you hate it?
Yeah, this is a hate percentage specifically.
35%.
There you go.
Oh, okay,
there you go.
okay.
I like that.
So, like I said,
fair enough.
Overall, my main frustrations were probably just that I picked to play it at a hard difficulty.
Normal mode, bro. Normal mode.
Except with myself.
I was kicking myself, especially as I'm like fighting the final boss. I'm like, God, why didn't I pick this at normal?
Have I done?
And I was all excited too because I was like, when you start a new game, it says, do you want easy, normal, or hard? And then there's a trophy in there that says complete the game at the hardest difficulty to the trouble. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I beat the game. It unlocks the hardest difficulty mode. So
joke's on you, sucker!
But then I was also like, no, thank you. I will not be returning for another playthrough.
That's funny. The game got the nice last little screw you in.
Exactly. But no, so it was a very, which then you also uncover from these backstory logs that you unlock by completing the game, that the dead space that the title refers to is the space around the marker that prevents necromorphs from getting there. So the marker, in a sense, protects you, but it also, if you take it away, that's what brings the baddies.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Paradoxical.
So yeah, Dead Space.
Nice.
35%.
30%.
Hate.
We're like,
35% hate. So that means bad at math, 65% positive reaction.
I like our system. It's confusing.
It's confusing. I want to do more.
It's a good game. You should try it out if you haven't played it.
Yeah.
Boom. There it is. Well, this has been an excellent list of some horror, spooky games.
Very
Happy
scurry.
Halloween.
Scurry.
Some
Very
scurry
scurry.
games.
Scurry.
Obviously, as with any of our list episodes, we want to know what top your horror games list. Which ones are out there that maybe we've talked about before, maybe we haven't, and those are the ones that we want to know about the most, so that we can maybe one day pick them out and play them for ourselves.
A maybe.
A maybe. If we feel like it, we shall say. But no, share us your favorite horror games on our Facebook, Twitter. If you're on the Discord, do it there or on the comments of this YouTube video.
Boom.
But we do have a song contest upcoming after the close because, as you know, we don't know who it is yet. But for those of you who are listening for the first time, the song contest goes live Wednesday, 9 a.m., the day after this episode airs. First person to correctly guess the game from the song and hint given will be able to give us a song for a future and hint for a future episode. So check our Facebook and Twitter for the posts when the contest goes live Wednesday, 9 a.m., the day after this episode airs. So November 1st. Boom, give you a date to look forward to. But that concludes this episode of Team Chat Podcast. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Jerrett Wilson, joined to my right by Rachel Mogan.
Adios.
And to my left, Zachary Parks.
Peace out.
We'll see you all next time. Stick around for the song. Okay, here's your song contest for this week. The hint is, use gold, wood, and food to build your empire. One more time, use gold, wood, and food to build your empire. Listen to the song and happy guessing.